Calling all authors, the Your Book, Your Voice podcast with host Robert A. Lane features everything you need to know about narrating your audiobook. But it doesn't stop there. We have special guests lined up from all aspects of the book publishing industry, and we also dive deep into what it takes to be mentally prepared for success as an author and in life. So please welcome your host, Robert A. Lane.
All right. Hey, my friends, how are you today? This is the Your Book, Your Voice podcast. I am your host, Robert A. Lane. I'm an audiobook coach and producer and specialize in helping nonfiction authors turn their books into audiobooks. But the key component, what makes it so great, is when the author narrates their audiobook themselves. Because again, no one can tell your story better than you. You're the nonfiction author. You wrote it, you lived it, you breathed it, you've experienced it. You're the one who is the most qualified to narrate your own audiobook. This podcast, of course, we bring in some special guests as well from the book industry, other authors. It's just a fun place to hang out, and glad you're here. By the way, we are streaming live on the Bold Brave TV network. If you'd like to participate in the show, you can. I very much encourage it, especially when we'll be talking to our special guest that we have for you tonight. And you can always call in or you can comment on the chat. Again, the call-in number, if you're watching the live stream now, you see the number on the screen, which is 866-451-1451. Again, that's 866-451-1451. Love to hear from you. And I'm just excited about our guest that we have on today. She is a best-selling author who has written both fiction and nonfiction books. She is also the founder of the Self-Publishing Mastery, which we're going to be talking about that in more detail. And she has just a ton of information and great tools and techniques and things to help you as an author be even better when it comes to writing, when it comes to marketing and promotion, getting the word out. So I'm really excited to bring on the show A.G. Billig.
Hello.
Hello.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here, Robert. And
Yeah, I'm excited to have you here.
Live show with you. Yeah.
Yeah, and you are a world traveler as well.
I just got back from Romania, so I'm back in Sedona.
And there you go. Well, welcome back. Glad you made it back safely, because that's important. We got to have you back.
Yeah.
So you've written quite a few books. I know you've written some nonfiction books and some fiction books as well. You've written a book called My Life on Tender. That's a fiction book, correct?
Yeah, that's the fiction book. Yeah, that's my most recent.
And then what about Four Doors and Other Stories? Is that also a fiction book, or
yeah,
is that...
Stories and Other Stories is actually it's my first book. It was traditionally published by MP Publishing from the Isle of Man, UK, and it's a short story collection. Yeah.
Okay.
That's 2012. Yeah.
Nice. And I know you have some other nonfiction books that are out there.
Yeah, you can see. Yeah, that's one behind me over there.
Right. Yeah. What is it? The 5 Easy Steps to Ending a Toxic Relationship. That's a great topic.
Yeah. Many people end up in these kinds of relationships that are actually there to teach us something. So they seem toxic, but they're actually great teachers if we know how to address that challenge that they are bringing into our life.
Absolutely. And then you also have a book called I Choose Love.
Yes, this is one of...
Right. Everybody needs to choose love.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we don't need to do anything. Everything is a choice in this life. We have a free will, but I think life is so much smoother and so much more rewarding when we make love our foundation. So it's just an opinion.
And then there's another book, Open Your Heart, Rise in Love, right?
Yeah, because so if you think of the term fall in love, we don't actually fall. Love, as you very well know, Robert, is a higher state of consciousness, a higher state of vibration. So actually, when we are in that state, we are not falling, we are rising. And it has to do with opening our heart so we can really tap into that state of consciousness.
And when you wrote these books, were you talking about personal experience, or did you incorporate that into the nonfiction books that you've written?
Yeah, well, a personal experience is part of it, and I know your audience is mostly nonfiction authors, people, and you work as a coach with nonfiction authors. So we all know how important storytelling is into this kind of books, especially when it's based on our own experience, because this gives us credibility. I mean, we are not just talking from the stuff that we've learned. Many of us we take classes and we have PhDs and master's degree, but I think life is our best teacher. So when we go through things and then we can add our own experience to our knowledge, then I think it adds an extra layer of depth, and it can help us better understand our target audience because we can relate to their problems as well. So yeah, there is a certain degree of personal experience in every book that I write.
And I think personal experience also helps in bringing out your true, authentic self
Exactly. Yeah.
as well. And that's really important, especially
Yeah.
to establish you as an author. You want to
Yes.
be your true, authentic self because that's what makes you you. That's what makes you so unique.
Yeah,
So,
and from my experience, because you mentioned I'm a book coach, so from my experience in working with authors, I noticed that authenticity is something that will always draw people in, readers. So if you want to really get to their hearts and build that connection with them, just let your authenticity shine through, because that makes you unique and relatable at the same time.
absolutely. Now, how did you get started in the book industry? How did this part of your career begin?
Well, I also have a background in PR and communications. I did a master's degree, and then I worked I'm originally from Romania, so I worked for an advertising agency. I worked for a concert promoter. So before I started uh, offering these services for authors, I was already doing it for big brands, big international brands. And once I realized that self-publishing is such a great opportunity for people who have also an entrepreneurial spirit, entrepreneurial skills, then I thought, okay, we need to be seen. I mean, a book can be the best book in the world, but if it's not seen by the potential readers, it's not going to uh, have success. So I thought, okay, let's use my knowledge and expertise in marketing and PR and branding and apply it to books. And I really believe that books are still making the world, or can make the world, a better and kinder place. So it's very rewarding to be able to serve those authors who have something to say, something to offer, and make sure that their message gets across to the right readers. So it's a longer story, but that's it in a nutshell.
No, that's great. And as a book coach, every author, or really every person in a sense does have a story to tell because we all experience life in a certain way, and there are things that affect us, and to be compelled enough to turn these experiences into a book for the whole world to read, in a sense you're kind of exposing yourself, but there is a lesson to be learned. How do you help authors when they're starting out, or maybe they're in the process of writing their book? How do you help them stay on track and just remain clear in expressing what they want to say? Are there tools, or how do you guide them to keep that clarity?
How many hours do we have? I'm kidding. One of my biggest passions is helping authors to create their author brand, because I think this is the foundation of every mm, book marketing, and every marketing endeavors should start with this foundation. And once an author have this foundation, and this is what I do to answer a question to help them stay on track, is just have this foundation, because this will then give them a very clear vision of who they are, of their messages, of the right communication channels, and help them plan ahead their other book marketing tactics, like book launches, advertisement, promotion, stuff like that, and also help them stay consistent with their with the way they show up in the world for their readers.
Yeah, totally makes sense. Um, do you help them stay focused? Because there's their core reason why I need to write this book. And
Yeah.
sometimes you can get a little off track, on not being focused on that core reason. Has that been a challenge to keep authors on track, or there are most people just they're like, yeah, okay, I'll
I
take your advice. I'm going to do
Yeah,
this.
yeah, yeah, pretty much. I think I've been lucky in that regard, that people have been really, the authors I've been fortunate to guide, they've been pretty responsive and ready to embrace my advice, and ready to really put their time and energy into this endeavor, and publishing and writing their books. So but yeah, knowing your why. And I think, Robert, it's not just the why should I the why, not just for writing but the book, but also the why for actually doing the marketing for the book, because I think that's
Mm,
where many authors, they get stuck. Because I can, for even for me, it is easier to go out and talk about an author, one of my authors, and brag about their books than do it for me. It's kind of like, oh, I don't want to brag, but when you frame it in a different way, that it's not bragging, it's not pushing your book. When you look at your book, and when you learn to look at your book as something that's delivering, bringing value into people's lives, then it's like an obligation to tell
mm.
people about your book, because it can make such a big difference. It can make such a big impact. So the why, I think, if this why gets really clear, and I just to be clear, speaking of clarity here, I focus mostly on the marketing side. I can also take an author who has an idea, nonfiction, not fiction, but a nonfiction author who has an idea that also is connected to the business. That's a whole other conversation. So I have someone who has an idea and turn it into a book. But having this why very clear, like, why do I actually need to market my book, and it go beyond the sales, like, I need to market my book because this way I can help people. Then it's going to shift the mindset, and it's going to make it easier for an author to go out and talk about the book and really take action to
So
make the
when an author,
books.
so when an author, let's say an author says, "Hey, AG, I want you to help me uh, with writing my book and all that." Is one of the first things that you do talk to them about is about? Do you ask them what is your marketing strategy? Do you have a plan of what you want to do with the book? Is that something you start, or you ask them at the very beginning just to get them
Well,
on track?
we do. I mean, there is a discovery call where
Mm,
their goals, the vision. Okay, so what's your, because many of them, they don't really have a marketing plan, a marketing
yeah,
strategy.
yeah.
It's just, oh, a manuscript, and I'll put it up on Amazon, and that's it. And it just happened like recently. Someone, they used one of those vanity publishers, And he said, oh, it's up there, and then the word of mouth will just happen. It won't just happen. The word of mouth needs to be, started. So the first step is just to find out what is the vision for the book, what is the goal with the book, and just then take it from there. And maybe, when we have this conversation, maybe someone can start with a goal or a vision, but then having this conversation and asking the right questions, maybe they can realize that actually the vision can be so much broader, and the book can do more than just they imagined in the beginning. And from there, if the manuscript is already ready, then we can go into the start planning the marketing, see if there is a brand. There are many coaches, right, speakers, spiritual teachers and you've been helping many of these people, so they already probably they have a brand. So how can we incorporate, and I think that's really important, how can we incorporate the book into the business so that they can be positioned as experts in their field?
In their field, yeah, absolutely. All right, you're listening to the Your Book, Your Voice podcast. I'm your host, Robert A. Lane. My very special guest is A.G. Billig. She is an awesome book coach. We're going to really dive into what we're going to do when we come back from our break is I want to really dive into how you define the author brand, because I think that's such an important aspect of being an author. We're going to get into that. We're streaming live on the Bold Brave TV network. Don't go away, my friends. We'll be right back.
What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is smaller than a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense radio show with host Dr. Broderick, Wednesdays 7 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave Media Network and TuneIn Radio. And to help support the Broderick Foundation, please go to EasySense.com and learn how, with your help, we can fight these horrific brain disorders. That's EasySense.com to learn more and help support the Broderick Foundation. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness, Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them. Rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies. Find settings that allow them to be the most productive and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio.
All right, welcome back. This is the Your Book, Your Voice podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Robert A. Lane, your host. We are streaming live on the Bold Brave TV network. And my very special guest is A.G. Billig, who is an awesome book coach. We've just been talking about a lot of great things. I'm glad we had an opportunity to talk a little bit about your books, which is great because, I do want to promote your books, and I know they're up there on Amazon, and I know one of your books you did turn it into an audiobook, which is awesome. That makes me happy. We just got to get your other books. We got to get your other books and audiobooks now.
Yeah, and I will, because for that one I used someone from Amazon. I used Audible, so great voice and no accent. I do have an accent, but maybe it doesn't matter as long as people can understand my words. Then the next.
Yeah, I absolutely. I think especially your nonfiction books. I mean, that's where it'll really shine, I think. So we kind of teased a little bit about author brand, and I'd really like to dive into that because that is such an important and crucial part of an author, who an author is. Because again, if you're an author, you wrote a book, you published a book, doesn't matter if you've written professionally or maybe you have a day job and you wrote your book in nights and weekends, but you did it. I consider you a professional now because you published your book. You are
Mhm.
not just an author. Now you're an entrepreneur. You are, because now you are the CEO of you. You are the decision maker when it comes to your author brand. So understanding what your author brand is super important. Now, the way I see it, and I'd love to, especially for you to expand on this because I know how important author brand is I feel an author's brand, what makes an author's brand is really everything that encompasses who they are, how
Yeah,
they were brought up, their belief systems, their habits, their
exactly.
personality, all of this that encompasses who they are creates the author brand. How would you define it?
Can I go now? You said it. I'm just kidding. Yeah, I see we have people, so please, we have a phone, we have a line for you. So we would love to hear your questions, really. So take this chance.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
we are
join
still
us.
live. Yeah, just do it. Yeah, I think you described it perfectly, Robert. It all starts with, and you said also the magic word, entrepreneur. So, before we dive deeper into the brand, I would have to say that self-publishing is mostly, and I don't want to, disappoint anybody or discourage anybody, but this is the reality. I think self-publishing is mostly not mostly, it is for people who have this entrepreneurial spirit, who have some skills, or if they don't have, they are willing to learn the skills, or they have the funds to hire an expert who can guide them as a coach, like Robert is doing, or like I'm doing, or other people are doing, or can just do the marketing for you. That being said, I think any professional book marketer should, when taking up a client, they should start by looking at the brand, see if there is a brand or not, and if not, really understand the author first, like author story. I see often like those bios that are so dry and uninteresting. So your bio as an author in itself, it is a story, and it needs to be as a story that's going to captivate the reader and is going to speak to their hearts and to their minds, and they're going to be able to relate to you in a certain way, or even look up at you as a role model. Um, so it is about your personality, your authenticity,
Mm,
again, values, beliefs, your mission, and then so it's you, right? So it's you, who you are, and then it is the genre. So what the kind of book you are writing and the kind
mm,
of topics that you are writing about, because I'm pretty sure that those topics, they have a correspondence with your values and your personality, your life story, your bio, your experience. And then you have the third element, which is your ideal reader. So who that reader is, because that person is not going to be interested in all the details of your personality and of your life. Those people, only some of those elements are going to speak to that person. So you want to consider all these three, I would say like three little wheels, and find the sweet spot. And from there, you can, the author brand can blossom, which is your own. So there is nothing else like you on this planet.
mm.
This combination is like a very special fragrance that only you can have, but which is instantly recognizable. And once people put it on, then that's all they're going ever to want, or is going to be their favorite, or is going to be easily recognizable. So
That
that's how I
yeah.
look at it.
So I know you've talked about before about that secret ingredient of what creates, or not really creates, but what makes a successful author brand. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Uh, if you one of these I mean, part of this element is finding the sweet spot between these
Hmm.
three elements I've just mentioned, because an author brand doesn't function in a vacuum. it
Right.
it has context, so you have to be able to put it in the context. I think, again, authenticity is a big thing here. Also, the success, the secret sauce also has to do with how you communicate this brand. So you have the foundation first, so you know your why, the vision, your genre, your personality. Once you have that, then you continue with the I call them visual elements. So then you
Mm.
go into, okay, I'll take headshots and I'm going to, wear white and pull up my hair. I'm just joking, but it has to align. So now, because you know who you know your personality, then you can start building the visual elements. You choose the color palette, um, the the look and feel of your website, of what you're posting on social media, so all that. And then you have all this very clear, and is very and also then messaging, bio, all that stuff. But then you have to be able to communicate this in a very compelling, clear way, so that you can really build a connection with your readers, because this brand will be a big help for you to build a connection, which will then generate sales and success and a loyal following that will be with you throughout your career.
Yes, and I'm going to say that another important component of your author brand is your voice. Your voice,
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
especially
Your yeah.
especially for nonfiction authors, right? Because and I'm sure you would agree that an author's voice is in their written word. The way that they express themselves in written form, that's a style that's unique to that author. And when you read a book, I mean, we imagine a voice in our
Yes.
head,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And when we're
Yeah.
reading it,
Yeah.
like we hear this voice and we hear the pacing, or we think we're feeling the pacing. But what makes it, I think, again, a crucial part of the author brand is when they do narrate. Now you're
Hmm.
hearing the author tell the story exactly the way that they want it to be heard. So you don't have to try to imagine it. You can now just absorb and listen.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Plus, the voice carries energy, and each voice has a unique
Mm.
energy. So I worked with Lori Led. She's a spiritual teacher, and I helped her with her book, bringing her first book into the world, and then it was a big success because she has a big community, and that's the other thing, if you have that author brand, then it will help you to build a community, a following, and then you can successfully launch a book. Don't rush into doing anything. I mean, you can work with Robert and learn how to narrate your audiobook and do it, but don't rush into publishing it before you have at least a core audience of a few hundred people that are eager to buy that book from you.
Mm.
So yeah.
So when it comes to the launching process of doing a book launch, do you help authors in the pre-launch phase? So as they're writing their book, do you tell them or give them pointers on how to generate interest while they are creating it, and like what types of things do you suggest for them to do?
Oh yeah, I can, I mean, there are two types of services. I can either be a coach and just suggest, give them, as you said, pointers, or I
Mhm.
can actually get involved into the campaign like I did with Lori, like 100% and look at the book, look at other titles that are similar, and actually come up with a strategy that's going to take that book to be a number one bestseller. I've done pretty much all the book launches I've done in the past 2 years have been Amazon number one bestsellers. And I know there are people voices saying, well, who cares? I mean, that changes hourly, but it's not a New York Times bestseller necessarily. Well, I mean, it still matters to have a number one Amazon bestseller, because when people go to, let's say, they look for a book on they look for a certain book in a certain category, and they are not looking for a particular author, but they are looking for the best books in spirituality, let's say, and they're going to check the top 100. They are not even to look at top 100, they're going to look at top 10. So here it is, your book, even if it's for an hour, but many books are there for longer than an hour. So your chance of being discovered by a new reader grow if your book it becomes an Amazon bestseller. So it's not to be discarded. It's not to be, considered unimportant. It is important. So this is my goal with every campaign I do, to get on those lists so that the book can be seen by people who are not necessarily part of the following of that author in that moment. And it's a whole strategy, and it takes time and it takes planning. I mean, traditional publishers, they start their campaigns when they do it, because some publishers don't do it, especially for authors who aren't
Yeah.
household big names, as we all
Right.
know. But
Right.
yeah, right. So it happened to Four Doors and Other Stories. They didn't promote that book, so it just sat there. But so I would consider planning at least 6 months in advance, and that's because you need to build this excitement. Maybe you need to
Yeah.
build your following, so that
Yeah.
takes time. Also, you need to have reviews. That's another thing that happened with that book I mentioned earlier, published by a vanity publisher. There are no reviews, and the book has been out, like, it's been out for 3 weeks now. So you want to make sure that when the book is getting released, it has reviews, because
Absolutely.
yeah, without those reviews, even if you pay for Amazon ads, you're not going to get the same results.
That's
So
right. Yeah.
yeah, so the
That's right.
whole strategy. So
Yeah.
man,
So
moving.
we're gonna take a quick break. We're talking about. I'm glad we're talking about book launching, because I want to talk more about the launching process up to until you do the book release, and then I want to dive into how do you do a successful in-person book launch. So we're gonna dive into
uh,
that when we
I
come
love.
back. Yeah. So this is the Your Book Your Voice podcast. I'm Robert A. Lane. My very special guest is A.G. Billig. We will be right back. We're streaming live on the Bold Brave TV network.
Call out.
Did you know that your beliefs create your entire reality, but it's the subconscious beliefs that do most of the creating? Belief shifter and life coach Shiraz can help you identify those limiting beliefs and eliminate them, often in a single session.
Like, it was almost instant. Like, I had relief right away.
Creating better health, relationships, careers, and finances. Let Shiraz help you step out of safety and into awareness.
Definitely something's happening. It's like a flow inside. It feels good.
Whether in person or online, Shiraz provides personal coaching, belief shifting. Visit Shiraz at energeticmagic.com or call 416-529-7429. Energetic Magic on the BBM Global Network, Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern. Find your greater happiness. Be well. Be aware. Be magical.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of the Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on the Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Here we are on the Your Book, Your Voice podcast. I'm your host, Robert A. Lane. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. We have a very special guest with you tonight, A.G. Billig, who is a book coach. She she really wants those phone calls to come in. Come on, give us a call. This is live. This is why we do it live. Now, if you're catching the replay, I understand. But right now, we are live. She's also the founder of the Self-Publishing Mastery, which we're going to dive a little bit more into that after we talk more about the book launching process. And I know we've just discussed that. One thing it's great about becoming an Amazon bestseller, #1 bestseller, and not just #1 new release, a #1 bestseller, because that is also important. When that happens, take that screenshot of that, and now you got some promo material to keep promoting your book.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, another great way of doing book promotion and when you do your launch is to get out there in person and go to bookstores, go wherever you need to go to promote your book and launch it in person. How does that work? Because sometimes it can seem like a very daunting task for an author to go on a book tour.
Okay, well, okay, let's just say one event. Let's just start with one event and then, you can, because to do a book tour again, you need to, I think you need to be really well with organizing
Yeah.
stuff, traveling cross country, which I think would be awesome. But let me tell you what I did back in Romania. So, Four Doors and Other Stories was also published in Romanian after it was published in English. And I wanted to do something different. Personally, I'm not a fan of those book launches where there is a host and then there is the author and then the author is asked, the host asks the because not every host is like you, Robert. That's the reason why. But so the author they get asked a few questions and then they read. And many authors, they are not really good with reading because they don't have a vocal coach to teach them how to do that. So I was like, okay, I want to do something different. So because I used to be a radio host, and that's why I'm used to having these live calls during the show. So and a TV host, I said, okay, I want to do something different. So I rewrote one of my stories as a monologue, and then I took acting classes. And I created an event which incorporate some monologue. I had dancers, video projections, and live music. So it was a whole different experience for the audience. I had a company sponsored us, and then they bought 150 books, which were offered to the participants to the public. And professional lights and sound, and we had like probably 200 people, and national television, journalists, and of course a book signing at the beginning. So I'm saying all this not to brag, but to show that it's always a great idea to think out of the box and to think about the experience, because you want to offer people, your readers, an experience. Not just a book launch. So how can you create an experience around your book? Because once you create an experience, then you can write a press release, you can send it to the media outlets in your city, in your county, and you can get so much more out of it than if you just do it the traditional way. I got people posted on social media, so it went viral. So that this would be my recommendation. First of all, you have to have a clear vision of what your book launch event, whatever you decide to do, should be like, and how can you make it an experience that's going to make people to want to talk about it, to want to buy your book, and also who would draw maybe even a potential partner. Because if you want to, my sponsor also, it was like a beer brand for women, so they also had partnerships with various locations in Bucharest. So it was a beautiful open space at a lake, and I was able to go there, so I didn't have to pay. So you can be creative also about getting a space without having to pay, or maybe paying lesser price, and getting involved. Even here in Sedona, right, we have the Chamber of Commerce. So there is a way to reach out at different companies and invite them to support you during the event, and in return they will get exposure, because that's what I did. I had media. So yeah, I don't know if this answers your question. If you're
Oh,
nonfiction,
yeah.
you can always do a workshop. And when Lewis House, we all know who Lewis House is, right? When he launched his book back in 2017, The Masks of Masculinity, I think it was the name of the book. So what he actually did, he did like a kind of a workshop type of thing with Q&A, and that was the event for his book release. Interestingly, 99% of the participants were women, but that's another story because he's a good-looking guy. But as a nonfiction author, yeah, I would think more towards like doing something like this rather than going. And again, I know Barnes and Noble. It doesn't have to be Barnes and Noble. Be creative. Bring people into a space that's where they would hang out, and that related to the topic of your book.
Yeah,
And
that's a brilliant idea. Uh, the big takeaway that I'm getting from this is think outside the box. Step
yeah,
outside and come up with other creative ways to promote your book. I think
yeah,
that's brilliant. I think that is a brilliant idea because again, when you do think about book launches, you think in a bookstore, the author comes in and maybe there is an MC or a narrator, or someone to host, and it may seem a little rigid, a little formal, and then you read a chapter, thank you, buy my book, I'll sign it, and then that's it. But I love it. I love this idea of really stepping outside what we think is how we're supposed to do that, because honestly, there aren't really any rules in a sense where it says you have to do it this way.
no.
I think it's great. I think that's a brilliant idea. I'll have to think about that next time if I write my next book, man, I'm gonna have to hire musicians and dancers and
Well,
we'll do.
I mean, yeah. Yeah, and again, don't no. I mean, it depends on what the book is on.
Well, of course, yeah, it depends on
Yeah,
what your book is, right?
yeah.
But
But and the other thing I wanted to kind of keep in mind is to think about also about partnerships. Who would make a good
yes,
partner for you to help you? Maybe maybe you don't get the money, but maybe you get to use the space for free,
yeah.
and that saves a little bit. What publication? So, for example, in Sedona, I've done 3 or 4 events, and we have here Kudos, which is our
Right.
magazine that covers entertainment and arts. And I made it in. I mean, every time I did something, I made sure that the event was in there for people to see it. So you can even ask your local media outlets to be your partners so that they can promote your event and be more invested into promoting the event.
Yeah, again, I think that's really a brilliant idea. If you wrote a book, maybe you wrote a self-help book and it deals with spirituality, for example. I mean, here in Sedona, Arizona, Sedona is a very spiritual place. There's plenty of places for you to partner up.
Yeah.
Instead of doing it at a bookstore, you can do it at a spiritual resort or a retreat place or somewhere that does tie into what your book is about. Now, after the book launch, what are some of the steps that you tell authors to do? Because I've seen it happen where people, they get all this excitement about their book. They do
Exactly.
the
Yeah.
book launch, and then like 2 weeks later, they're done. It's like they don't do any more additional promotion. Are there steps that you suggest for authors so that they have a plan that's post book launch?
Yeah, that you're so right about this. That's it happens often that people they put all their efforts into the book launch and then they drop the ball, and that's not the way
Yeah.
to do it. That's not serving you. The Amazon algorithm will see a spike in sales and then it drops and then it flattens, and you don't want that. So you want
Yeah.
to you want to keep the momentum going. You need to always bring new readers to your page. So after the book is released, after that's why I'm saying that you have to have reviews. So once you have at least
Mm.
20 reviews over there, then you can start using the tool I call pay to play. So you can start running ads, Amazon ads, Facebook ads for fiction. So you can do those ads. You need to keep posting your social media.
Yeah.
Uh, Try to do at least one media appearance a month. You can be on a podcast, you can do a written interview, you can do a book blog tour,
Hmm.
even after the book is launched. And certainly, maybe every 3 months, you can drop the price for your ebook,
Mm-hmm.
make it available at 99 cents or 1.99, and use the promo sites. There are promo sites which have big email lists, so you would pay a fee, and then they would advertise your book to their subscribers. So that would generate another spike in sales and put you in front of new readers. The problem and BookBub is the holy grail of the
Right.
book promo sites,
BookBub. Yeah.
but that's I mean, it's 1,000. It depends. It's like outrageously expensive, I would say.
Mm. Mm.
And um, but this is something once you get some traction and you have money coming in, and you definitely invest some of that money in the marketing. You can do that. So
Yeah.
these are my recommendations. But yeah, keep keep telling people about your book.
Yeah.
And you can always do more events.
Sure.
um, you
Yeah.
can
That's
look, yeah.
yeah.
And
That's
you have,
just great. Yeah.
you have an event, because you mentioned spirituality. So for people in this area, there is a Conscious Life Expo, right? So you can go there, get a table. If you get a table, they will give you a speaking slot, and you can do a presentation there. So yeah, I think events are another avenue for promoting the book. But yeah,
Yeah.
keep doing
That's
this.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Really great advice to keep doing things consistently, because you got to put
yeah,
yourself out there.
yeah.
We're going to take our last break. This is the Your Book, Your Voice podcast. I'm going to give you this to think about during the break, AG, and that is one valuable piece of advice that you can give for authors. So think about that. And we're going to talk about that and wrap things up here on the Your Book, Your Voice podcast. Don't go away, my friends. We'll be right back. We're streaming live on the Bold Brave TV network.
Mike Zorich, a three-time California state champion in Greco-Roman wrestling at 114 pounds. Mike, blind since birth, was born in Hartford, Connecticut. He was a 6-time national placer, including 2 seconds, 2 thirds, and 2 fourths. He also won the Veterans Folk Style Wrestling twice at 152 pounds. In all these tournaments, he was the only blind competitor. Nancy Zorick, a creative spirit whose talents have taken her to the stage and into galleries and exhibitions in several states. Her father, a commercial artist who shared his instruments with his daughter and helped her fine-tune her natural abilities, influenced her decision to follow in his footsteps. Ms. Zorick has enjoyed a fruitful career doing what she loves. Listen Saturday mornings at 12 Eastern for the Nancy and Mike Show for heartwarming stories and interesting talk on the BBM Global Network. Dr. RC will share extraordinary resources and services that promote educational success, as well as making a difference in the lives of all social workers, as well as the lives of children, adolescents, and teens of today. She will have open discussions addressing many of the issues that we face about our youth and how being employed in the uniquely skilled profession of social work for over 18 years has taught invaluable lessons through her personal experiences. She will also provide real-life facts, examples, and personal stories that will confirm that why serving as a child advocate is extremely beneficial when addressing the needs of the whole child. Listen live to Dare to Soar, Saturdays 10 a.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network, and tune in radio as Dr. RC will provide thought-provoking information that will empower, encourage, and strengthen students, families, and communities across our nation. You can also visit her at soarwithkatie.com.
Welcome back to the Your Book, Your Voice podcast. I'm Robert A. Lane. Thank you so much for joining us today. We have, of course, our very special guest, A.G. Billig, who is a book coach. Now, I know I asked you about one piece of advice that you can give for authors, but before we dive into that, can you tell us more about the self-publishing mastery, which I know is something that you founded? What is it? And yeah, just tell us more about that.
Okay. Well, yeah. Make a long story short, I was at the London Book Fair back in 2015. The London Book Fair is one of the major trade shows for the publishing industry. Lately, they started focusing on self-publishing because it can no longer be ignored. And I remember seeing Mark Dawson there speaking about his success and earning $500,000 just by selling ebooks. So that's when I realized that this is something that's self-publishing that's going to only grow going forward. Realize that there is a huge potential for being of service to authors who are going to embrace this avenue. And because back then it was still fairly new, and because many creatives and authors, they don't know, they don't have the skills to market their books, but I thought they'd be willing to at least to learn. I thought, okay, let's create something that's going to help them. And then because I like to be the best in what I do, I thought, okay, if these authors are going to be successful, they're going to be able to become a master of self-publishing, hence the title, Self-Publishing Mastery. Yeah. So it is, you can find it at selfpublishingmastery.com. And initially I thought it as a place, more like an online magazine where people would go and they would find information, articles, know-how, basically on every aspect of the self-publishing process. And then I added the services and a video series. It's called Self-Publishing Mastery Talks. And then it's basically an education center. That's what it is, a virtual one. So I haven't done any in-person events yet, but I would love to do this at some point and also start Self-Publishing Mastery Awards for authors who are writing books on how to write, self-publish a book and create that for them. And the city of Santa Ana, because I lived in Santa Ana for several years, we we've been awarded Best Education Center in Santa Ana. So
That's
that's what
really
it is.
great. Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's really just a great resource. It's just a great
Yeah.
resource.
Yeah.
All right, so now for the big question.
Oh, the big
What
question. Yeah.
what one piece of advice can you give for authors to help them uh, get their book out and be a successful published author?
I would say one word. No, actually two words. Audience plus brand. I mean, you know, build that brand as you write your book, and also as you write your book, continue, if you have an audience, continue to build that audience, or if you don't have one, start now, because it will, it will be a game changer. I've seen it working with authors, such a huge difference between those who have an audience like Lori, or someone who is just starting out and they are rushing into publishing a book without having that audience already ready and eager to buy something from them.
Mm,
So these are two elements that you should really focus on, and the rest will follow. And
yeah,
of course, write a great book, because
yeah,
no market is going to trump that, the quality of the book. So you need to have that book, the book that speaks to the people's hearts and minds. So
that's great. And yeah, and again, that author brand, that's key. That's a key
yeah,
thing. If
yeah.
you know, and if you need help developing your author brand, if you need help with PR and marketing and getting your book out there and having a real clear plan, AG Billig is the person that you should get in touch with. What would be the best way for people to get in touch with you?
If you go to selfpublishingmastery.com, because if I just say my email, probably it will be hard for people to write it down, or, it's contact@selfpublishingmastery.com. But if you go to my website, to selfpublishingmastery.com, there is a contact form, and you can use that, and you can reach me. I think that's
Perfect.
the easiest way. There is also a YouTube channel, and there is also an Instagram account, Self Publishing Mastery. But if you have a question, if you want to inquire about my services, that's the place to go, the website.
Perfect. All right. So you heard it there. Go to selfpublishingmastery.com. Thank you so much, AG, for joining us on the podcast here.
Thanks for
Um,
having me.
one last assignment before we leave, and I do this on every show, and that's this. When you're out and about in the world, smile at a stranger, say hello to them, maybe give them a compliment, because that small gesture of kindness can make the world a difference in somebody's life. So be a life changer. All right, we're going to wrap things up again. AG, thank you so much. This is the Your Book, Your Voice podcast. I appreciate all of you for hanging out. We'll be back next week with another show. I'm Robert A. Lane. Have a great week. We'll be talking to you soon. Take care. We are, of course, streaming live on the Bold Brave TV network.
This has been Your Book, Your Voice with host Robert A. Lane. Tune in each week for another powerful and informative episode of Your Book, Your Voice, Thursdays, 8 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave TV network.